Hello and welcome to MindShifters Radio. I'm Tim Hayes. I'm your host for the first hour. And today is Wednesday, April 14th, 2021. As always, we're grateful to everyone who's joining us here today, whether you're listening live or through the archives, as we spend another couple of hours teaching and supporting people in using some of the most powerful, effective, efficient, and accessible tools that I've ever encountered. And that includes 46-plus years of doing therapy and getting trained in a doctorate in clinical psychology. And I'm grateful to announce that these tools are available absolutely free at whyagain.org. If you go to that website and click on the red and white bullseye or the link in the upper left-hand corner of most pages that says Start Here, it will take you to a page where you can download and read Chapter 24 of Dr. Michael Rice's book. His book is titled, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And that chapter of that book contains a narrative description of the primary tool in this work. That tool is called the Reality Management Worksheet, sometimes called the Reality Management Wake-Up Sheet. And it's a tool I've been using for over 16 years to improve the quality of my life, manage my emotions, improve my relationships, and turn any negative emotional experience into part of the infallible guidance system that we're all gifted with. You can also download the actual tool itself from that web page. You can download a host of audio files of shows just like this one where people have called in and been stepped through the use of that tool, and those audio files can serve as a tutorial for you. You can also go to your app store and type in the 3 words HeartLand Aramaic Forgiveness and get access to a completely free and private app that contains the Reality Management Worksheet, an abbreviated version of that worksheet process, and a copy of the Dragon and Klingon game, which is a wonderful way to introduce these tools to even younger audiences. We encourage people to do that soon and often, because when you do, it most likely is going to stir things up for you and generate some questions, and we would be happy to explore those questions with you. Our call-in number here is 563-999-3581. And if you call that number and press 1, it will put a little question mark by your phone number, and I'll announce you by your area code. We've also made the commitment this year to work through the Course in Miracles Workbook Lessons. Today is the 104th day of the year, and so today's lesson is Lesson 104. And the lesson itself reads, I seek but what belongs to me in truth. The commentary reads, today's idea continues with the thought that joy and peace are not but idle dreams. They are your right because of what you are. They come to you from the Creator, who cannot fail to give you what it wills. Yet must there be a place made ready to receive these gifts. They are not welcomed gladly by a mind that has instead received the gifts it made, where the mind has made gifts that belong where the Creator's gifts belong. Today we would remove all the meaningless and self-made gifts which we have placed upon the holy altar where the Creator's gifts belong. The Creator's gifts that are our own in truth. The Creator's gifts are the gifts that we inherited before time was, and that will still be ours when time has passed into eternity. These gifts that are within us now, for they are timeless, and we need not wait to have them. They belong to us today. Therefore, we choose to have them now, and know in choosing them in place of what we have made, we but unite our own will with that of the Creator and recognize the same as being one. Our longer practice periods today, the hourly 5 minutes given truth for your salvation, should begin with this. I seek but what belongs to me in truth, and joy and peace are my inheritance. Then lay aside the conflicts of the world that offer other gifts and other goals made of illusions, witnessed to by them and sought for only in a world of dreams. All of this we lay aside and seek instead that which is truly ours, as we ask to recognize the Creator and what the Creator has given us. We clear a holy place within our minds before this altar where the Creator's gifts of peace and joy are welcome, and to which we come to find what has been given to us by the Creator. We welcome in confidence today, aware that what belongs to us in truth is what the Creator gives, and we would wish for nothing else, for nothing else belongs to us in truth. So do we clear the way for the Creator today by simply recognizing that the Creator's will is done already and that joy and peace belong to us as its eternal gifts. We will not let ourselves lose sight of them between the times we come to seek for them where He has laid them. And this reminder will we bring to mind as often as we can today. I seek but what belongs to me in truth. The Creator's gifts of joy and peace are all I want. In the Pam Grout book, Course in Miracles Experiment, Lesson 104 is titled, Today, I Choose to Be Free. She quotes Samuel Beckett as saying, Dance first, think later. It's the natural order. Pam writes, The rules we pick up here on planet Earth revolve around the following themes. Stop, don't, be careful. In the Course, we learn just the opposite. Go for it. Of course you can. Throw caution to the wind. In Lesson 104, I seek what belonged to me in truth. It assures me of the blissful freedom that comes from giving up judgment, especially the below-the-surface quiet doctrines instilled by our culture. Those times that we listen, nod our heads, but secretly think, you're wrong, you know. Today, I commit to living south of my neck, in my heart. Whatever happens, whatever anyone says, irrespective of my internal response, I will embrace it and willingly give 100%. Living without judgment, as this lesson proves, comes with a rarely experienced sense of freedom, connection, and community, a palpable interaction with all that is. My judgments, I find, are nothing but a strategy waged by the separate self so it can stay protected in its lonely silo. Letting go of all defenses comes with a risk, but when I give up the thought that I'm right, when I validate every moment and every person, a great dissolving takes place. I discover the connection that is already here, the oneness that existed before time, the oneness that will be here long after time. Today's lesson, I seek what belonged to me in truth. So that's our lesson for today from the Course in Miracles workbook and Pam Grout's additional commentary. And we have 49 minutes left in this first hour to entertain comments, questions, answers, soliloquies, to discuss anything that's on people's minds about this work. We've discussed in the past 10 years. We had a support group last night, and we listened to some presentations, some talks, and some Q&As from Ganga G and Eli Jackson Bear, who is her life partner. And they're both teaching the basic tool of letting go, stopping all of this intentional, conscious, logical mind creation, which always leaves us wanting more and always leaves us chasing our tail, so to speak. As in the lesson today, trying to be right, trying to figure out how to be right, rather than just blessing all of creation, blessing what is, stepping into the allowance and surrender that's called for in so many of these great spiritual traditions. The gifts of joy and peace are not idle dreams. They are your inheritance. And yet, every time I judge, every time I hold a grievance, as previous lessons have, had me focus on, I steal from myself my ability to be aware of that gift, of those gifts of joy and peace. And so we present tools in this work to try and help ourselves move from the place of being triggered to upset and judgment and being stuck in what David Bohm would call sustained incoherence, knowing we're right and the other person's wrong, and in that process pouring our mind energy into things that create anger and bitterness and fear and hurt and resentment and block us from experiencing the true gifts from the Creator, which are the joy and peace that are talked about in today's lesson. So, how can we support you today? What would be of interest? What would be a useful topic to discuss? I keep thinking about all of the things that people are posting constantly about their ways to reach enlightenment, their teachers, their gurus, their fears, and how many people that we watch in our lives, whether they're family or friends, that are driven by fear. And one of the things that Gangaji and Eli Jackson Bear were talking about yesterday was having us slow down and pay attention to what are we giving our lives to, and really understand that our focus of our conscious attention, the thing we really spend our time thinking about most of the day, the things we really spend our money and energy on in these various ways, this is what's going to create our experience of life. And if we're giving ourselves to, if we're spending most of our time pursuing things that are leaving us feeling less than that connection to the joy and happiness and peace that are in today's Course in Miracles lesson, then we might want to reevaluate what we're spending all of that time and energy on, simply because we have the choice. I was reading from the Way of Mastery first lesson yesterday about how we only experience those things that we have chosen to focus our awareness upon. We actually create our experience of life in that process. And our culture doesn't teach us that, but the fact of it is there to be observed. And if we step into the realization that we are the ones choosing what we focus our attention on, and that's what's creating our experience of life, and then we wake up and realize, you know what, I really don't like this. I'm not enjoying this. This isn't fun. Then we have the choice, but only then do we have the choice to choose differently, to create differently in our experience of life. And so that's what we're being encouraged to do in this work, to spend more of our mind energy monitoring our own thought process and understanding that it's that thought process that's the most powerful creative force in our life experience. And choosing more wisely, choosing for that which feeds us or nourishes us or lets us have that experience of those gifts that are referred to in the lesson today, the gifts of joy and peace, the gift of gratitude, the ability to appreciate the miracle of life that each of us has. And it is amazing how much the conscious logical mind, the ego, this lowercase self, whatever you want to call it, kicks up a fuss and generates fear and anxiety or panic every time there's talk about just letting go. Last night in one of the talks with Gangaji and Eli, there was the question of, are you willing to die? And some people were interpreting that as though, you have to be willing to die physically, like throw yourself on some pagan altar. And I was trying to point out to the people in the group that's not the way I was interpreting that discussion, that what they're talking about is, am I willing to die to my attachment to all of these thoughts about who I am and who I should be, to this set of thoughts about how I need to get known in the world, how I need to be a nationally or internationally recognized artist, or how I need to be treated in a certain way with respect and dignity wherever I go, and understanding that the constellation of thoughts and shoulds and should nots that I carry around with me and pour my mind energy into, that constellation of thoughts is exactly the thing that prevents me from having direct access to the gifts that are referred to in today's Course in Miracles lesson. That's exactly what will block me from having peace and joy as my conscious awareness moment to moment. And if I can acknowledge that, if I can step into the choice to allow, to appreciate, to release judgment, to train myself to catch the early warning signs that I've gone into judgment, the tension, the fear, the anxiety. If I can step into the early recognition of that process and interrupt it and choose differently, it instantly creates a very different experience of life. So that's what we're calling people to do here, but not just, just be happy, but actually here's a set of tools for every time that I recognize that I'm in tension or I'm in judgment that I can apply with just, shovel in, dirt out, very simple, repetitive, direct application of a tool, one situation at a time. I can dismantle the false belief systems that block from me awareness of my true nature. And I can shorten the length of time that I spend in the negative emotions that come from when my life situation unfolds in a way that's different than I think it should. And boy, we have just a boatload of shows where there are living examples of that. And if you go into the archives and you look at those shows that are specifically designed for, when somebody did a worksheet or someone who's doing processing, it's right there to be seen that these tools can powerfully help you create differently in your life. You know, we've had some support groups where people have stepped up and said, well, I've got this problem, and this person just ripped me off for $70,000, and I have all of this upset. And yet, as we step them through the worksheet process, what they would previously have considered to be impossible happens in a very short period of time. And what's created is a shift in perspective, a shift in perception. Of course, in Miracles at various times says that a miracle is simply a shift in perception from fear to love. And when I can willingly turn the focus inside myself, when I think someone has ripped me off, seriously wronged me, done a horrible deed, and I can willingly turn the focus inside myself, I can get access to the mechanism of thought and traumatic energy and resonance that's inside me that's actually producing the upset that my conscious logical mind is absolutely certain is being caused by someone outside of me. And we have example after example that are available in the archive. There's one of them from a couple years ago that came to my attention because of the redoing the blog post. And we did an internet show with, I did a few shows where I was just sharing the worksheets I had done. And then there was a show with Susan Bingham asking questions about fear related to the book Jesus, My Autobiography. And I found myself, in response to her questions, talking about the upset that had gone on in my life just a week or two before, and the serious dismantling of those false beliefs that were literally creating these intense physical sensations of sick feeling and rage and hurt and confusion. And it's right there in this very simple tool that's available absolutely free. So give us a call, ask us a question, go to the archives, download some of these files. And Jeannie has done a fairly masterful job of curating out some of the most significant radio shows where people have called in and actually been stepped through the worksheet process for a traumatic event. And if you go to the whyagain.org website and click on the red and white bullseye, I think it's the fourth link on that. It's the third or fourth link on that says special shows. And there are MP3 instructions on the worksheet, and there's just a whole list of shows ranging from 2011 to 2021 where people have been stepped through the worksheet process and or had discussions about the dynamics that drive the powerful successes that people have with that. I'm scrolling down through the list right now, and to me it's quite amazing that it goes all the way back to 2011. One of the first worksheets that was listed is from a woman named Lynn who was feeling murderous rage, and in one worksheet went from murderous rage to laughter about a situation that involved something so significant. It was actually people who had gone after her and had her medical license revoked. I don't know what it is, maybe March 14th of 2019. It says Dr. Tim processes through his own wake-up sheet. So that might be the ones I was referring to where I had this very powerfully upsetting experience because of the way I interpreted it. And it had me up for several nights in the middle of the night, and then I was doing worksheets when I would be getting up in the middle of the night, and then I'd get on the internet show and talk about that worksheet process. And so, the point of all of this work is for me to train myself to observe accurately and directly that I'm the one creating my upset. To tie it back to today's Course in Miracles lesson, I'm the one that's keeping myself from experiencing the joy and peace that are the gifts of the Creator, and they are the only true gifts that we get from the Creator is the gift of life, the miracle of life, the gift of awareness, so we have the ability to experience and appreciate life, and everything else that we experience, that's bitterness, that's sadness, that's pain, that's suffering, that's my favorite acronym for sin. That's self-induced nonsense. And if no one's ever introduced us to that observation, then we live by the culturally trained conditioning that says, you made me angry, you hurt my feelings, you're scaring me. And we live in the prison of believing that our emotions and our life experience is driven by people and things outside of us. And most of us know the misery of that. That's why most of us would listen to an internet show like this, or would search out tools like the ones Michael and Jeannie make available at whyagain.org. So, we've got 31 minutes left. We've got plenty of time for a question, a comment, a refutation, an answer. 563-999-3581. How can we support you today? What would be beneficially expedient for you to use this time, this next 31 minutes? I've been moved several times in the past few weeks to read different excerpts from Glennon Doyle's book, Untamed. And I recommend the book to anybody who's looking for some really good questions and a modeling of somebody who has gone into their own inner processing, as torturous as that was, and somebody who's recovered from very serious alcohol addiction and very serious eating disorders, and I suppose you might even say recovered from a very intense religious training. I had somebody else recently that was in my office at just 15 years old, and making all of the statements that indicate this person is probably an empath. And so I recommended the book, The Empath Survival Guide by Dr. Judith Orloff. And also within this past 2 weeks, I found myself again recommending to somebody the book by Patricia Evans titled The Verbally Abusive Relationship, How to Recognize It and How to Respond. And if you're stuck in a relationship and you keep going around and you keep giving people chances and they keep not living up to your expectations, you might want to read the book by Dr. Henry Cloud, Necessary Endings. And while he's writing from a perspective of a Christian author. And so because of that, it's not very easy for him to reach the conclusion, you need to get out of this relationship, because a lot of Christians believe if you got married, you have to stay until death do us part. So he writes this from the perspective of a corporate leader and how he does corporate trainings and teaches CEOs and presidents of companies to recognize how their emotional issues may be blocking them from making the best decision for both the company and the person involved. And then, of course, there is the book, 15 Components of Conscious Leadership, which has many aspects that are in parallel with the work we do in MindShifters Radio, Dr. Michael Rice's series of lectures, and is I've read several of those of the top 15 commitments, and they're right in line with the 10 bottom line observations that I give to patients in a first session, and sometimes they take them just a little bit further. And we've also talked extensively and read in this internet show about the book Course of Love, and about the book Everything is Here to Help You from Matt Kahn. And so we have literally near an endless, I think we talked quite a bit about the book When Things Fall Apart by Pema Chodron, and Welcoming the Unwelcome, also by Pema Chodron. So there's all kinds of places we can go. What would serve you best for the remainder of this show? 563-999-3581. Call that number, press 1, and we can have a conversation. We've talked about the book Healing Depression Without Medication by Dr. Jody Skillicorn. I've interviewed her twice. Her interviews, along with a host of others, are available at journeysdream.org/podcast. And we also have Pam Grout's book, E Squared, that was gifted to me recently. And I was fascinated by the responses I've heard about this book over the years. One of them is, Susan gave it recently, is, if I do that, aren't I trying to put myself on the level of the Creator? Aren't I trying to mess around with what actually is? And that's a wonderful set of questions, because it's I can create a belief that I'm competing with God or the Creator. I can create a belief that this is bad or fearful. But all that's happening in the life of a human being is the human being is living and the human being is directing their mind energy. That's all that ever happens. They're given this tool, this with the power of creation at various levels, and that's mind energy, the focus of your attention in each moment, which is a creative force. And it's always on, and it can't be turned off, so that's not up for debate. The only thing that's up for debate is, what am I going to use that mind energy for? Am I going to create fear, or am I going to choose for love? Am I going to create allowance, acceptance, surrender, or am I going to create resistance and tension and judgment and fear? In the book E Squared, Pam Grout quotes Mark Twain as saying, "It ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so." And so that's why we say so often in this work, it is so much better to live from direct observation, as Rilke would call us to learn to live in the questioning state without demanding an answer, because then I'm open to questioning everything. And when I live from belief, when I pour my allegiance into a teacher or a belief system or a thought process, I put blinders on myself. I stop questioning. I stop living from direct observation. And I like to use the example of driving a car. No one here in their right mind would decide to drive their car based on belief. Oh, well, here I am, and I'm 5 miles from home, and the road is straight and clear, and all the lights are green, and if I floor it, I'll get there faster. I just close my eyes and visualize that and get in the car and drive. It's not going to go well. How do we drive our car? We drive our car with direct observation. We keep our minds wide awake and open, and we're actively using the input from our senses in the moment. It's this constant feedback interacting with our thoughts and our actions. We've got the video by Anil Seth, and it talks about the same kind of thing as in the book by Kurt Anderson, the author of True Believers, where it says, everything we think we're seeing is all just a guess. It's a prediction our brains are making. And if you look up on YouTube, Anil Seth, A-N-I-L-S-E-T-H, and you just type his name and then anything to do with perception or hallucinating perception, you'll get some very good videos you can watch, anywhere from, I think the shortest one is 7 or 8 minutes, up to 14, 20 minutes, an hour and a half, where he's talking about the latest neuroscience related to perception. And you'd think that those neuroscientists had been reading Course in Miracles, and A Course in Miracles says, your wildest misperceptions, your weird imaginings, your blackest nightmares, they all mean nothing. Unless, of course, you give them that meaning. You give them the power. So can we move into a space of open and questioning? Can we move into the observation for ways to find the good, the holy, and the beautiful with each new breath? Can we combine that process with the willingness to recognize when judgment, negativity, negative emotions, or traumas get aroused in us, and then step into the use of a tool to dismantle the roots of that negativity? So it's a two-prong approach. I highly recommend using both to stay balanced. I highly recommend applying a tool like today's lesson from the Course in Miracles that has me reminding myself many times a day, with each breath if possible, that I seek but what belongs to me, and the gifts that the Creator has created are truth, joy, and peace. And these are mine to be enjoyed each moment that I choose to focus on them. And everything else is false. Everything else is part of the creation of judgment or fear. Is this Ellen? 484?
Yes, it is. Yes. Hi, Dr. Tim.
Hello, Ellen.
Yeah, I just wanted to share an experiment that I did with something that was, bothersome to me on a very frequent basis. And this is, it's an experiment, and it might be one. I know Susan was talking yesterday about the Pam Grout experiment, in which she found kind of fearful, and I've experienced that too. Well, what if I do this and it doesn't happen, But so this one may be less fearful for people to try if this is something that, has been their experience as well. So what would happen all the time is, and it still happens, and I still do this experiment when I think of it, be driving and, suddenly someone pulls out right in front of me and now they're going real slow. Like what I want is I want a free and open road. I can drive the speed I want to drive. I don't have to slam on my brakes for anyone, right? But all the time these things were happening, right? And I was, suffering. I was being very irritated, getting angry. And I finally got to the point where it was like, okay, there's got to be a better way. So I decided, all right, well, it is what it is. I can't force people not to get in my way. So I'm just going to accept it. I'm just going to accept, because whether or not I can accept it and find peace with it, or I can rail against it and be miserable. So, and sometimes I wouldn't even be successful at it, but a lot of times, like I remember the very first time I tried this, and I got totally at peace with it. And as soon as I got to that, the car that was in front of me that was so bothersome turned off the road. And I thought, is that coincidence? Because now I'm fine with them being there, and as soon as I was fine with them being there, they went away. So I started, that got me really curious, and so not only is it better just to be at peace, right, but I started noticing that the thing that I initially wanted was happening as soon as I didn't need it to happen anymore. And I found that, either the person turns off the road or the person speeds up. Like if my problem with their driving was that they were driving too slowly, suddenly they speed up, and now I'm way behind them. I don't even need to drive that fast, but suddenly it's like I have a free and clear road when I no longer actually even need it. But there it is. And so that I thought was a really great experiment because it proved itself to me over and over and over again that I can be at peace anytime I accept whatever the experience is, and it leads me into even getting more than I think I need or want.
Well, it's a wonderful thing to do, to experiment. That experimenting is basically doing what we were just talking about, what Rilke would call us to. Live in the question. Keep your eyes open. Observe. Question every belief you have. Question what you think you need every time you get angry. If I can use my negative emotional states, my tension, my judgment, my bitterness, my hurt, my resentment, if I can use that as a signal to get me to turn inward, which is where all of that's being created in the first place, it starts opening up crazy, almost limitless options where moments before I seemed absolutely stymied. Because if I'm focusing on the things outside of me and the people outside of me that I can't control, I am stymied. I am, by definition, I'm going to feel out of control because I'm focusing on all these things I don't have any control over.
Right. And so I realized that the only control we ever have is self-control. And when I started doing that, instead of, realizing, okay, I'm having all this anger coming up, but I can choose to be at peace with this, and this is what it is, and, you know, turning the control towards my reaction as opposed to trying to control what's out there. And, yeah, it was very enlightening for me to see that this is the way I've been going through life, is always trying to control everything out there, everything I had no control over, instead of, like, focusing on the one thing I do have control over, which is my reaction to it all.
Yeah, and I just have to say that, you know, it's been so valuable for me to be persistent, and Michael Rice would say persistent and consistent in my application of the tools, because for the bigger upsets, for the bigger life disappointments, for the bigger investments where I've invested a lot of time, intelligence, money, and energy, and then someone has ripped me off or disappointed me, it doesn't, my experience personally is, it doesn't just go away with one or two worksheets. And yet, the more I am willing to continue to use the tools every time I become aware of this level of upset, the more resolution I get. And so here we are, you know, just essentially just past 2 years from one of the biggest disappointments, upsets, in quotes, tragedies of my adult life in terms of, you know, $30,000 lost, etc., and hopes dreamed dashed. Here we are, just like basically 2 years past it, and because of my willingness to pick up the tools when these things have come up and they've come to mind, I stumble across this blog post and I go, oh yeah, that did happen, and it's just, it is not consuming my every thought. It is not driving bitterness and resentment. It isn't defining my life today. But when it happened, I was absolutely certain that was it. That was going to define my life for the big chunk of the rest of my life. That was, you know, dreams dashed and hopes shredded and money lost, and, you know, and I was pleasantly surprised to stumble across this blog post and say, wow, I almost forgot that happened. Right? I'm not living in the wake, in the backwash of the misery of that. And the money hasn't been recovered, and the dreams didn't get fulfilled, and none of that was necessary for me to have contentment and peace and satisfaction in my life. But when I had that thought, the only way I'm going to get, you know, contentment or peace or satisfaction is if, you know, this dream comes true, this money gets recovered, this, you know, process unfolds the way, you know, I thought it should or whatever, and none of that was true. And my guidance system for knowing it wasn't true was because it left me feeling the negative emotion.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you were going to say something a couple different times, so go ahead and speak up.
No, I don't even remember what I was going to say a little bit ago, but it just, it takes me back to what has been so meaningful for me in the recent lessons, as it keeps referring to, I can make the choice now. Like, I don't have to wait a moment longer. There's nothing that can change that will bring me what I think I want. It's already there. I already have it, and it's just up for me. It's just up to me to recognize that and choose it now. I don't have to wait. I don't have to continue suffering a moment longer. That has literally changed my life this week. Really, really getting that. And I have been experiencing, like, living in much more of a flow state than I have in, you know, quite some time. And it's been wonderful. It's like I just keep reminding myself every time I feel that, oh, I wish, you know, oh, that ouch kind of feeling. It's like, oh, no, wait a minute. It's exactly what I need. I don't know why.
I can I can choose again.
Yeah, I can choose to be happy regardless of this. This doesn't make me happy or unhappy. My happiness is always with me. So let me go there instead of focusing on this ouch feeling. And it's just been amazing how, and when I go in, like I had to go into something yesterday that I know from past experience, because I went through this before, that it's going to be, it was very painful when I experienced it in the past, but I went into it with a completely open mind and choosing the happiness, and it was like, it doesn't matter if it hurts while this is going on or after this happens, or I can still choose to be happy. And I was going in for this like outpatient procedure, and it was like the whole thing unfolded in a way that I never could have even imagined. And it was so much better than what I thought I knew was going to happen. And like that is just proving to me how me choosing my happiness at the outstart, I don't wait for something to trigger happiness in me. No, I choose it first. And then I'm noticing how life unfolding is so much more pleasant.
Well, you're reminding me of you're reminding me of the lecture that Dr. Rice has on video, and it's from the Course in Miracles, and it's the Course in Miracles, A New Beginning. So there are a series of lessons from A Course in Miracles that Michael Rice has pulled together, and he gives an entire, I don't know if that particular one is a full 2 hours long, but most of his lectures are about 2 hours. And it's the idea that we can, in each new moment, we get up in the morning, we decide what kind of day we want, and then one of the keys is, in that Course in Miracles series of lessons, is we have to give away what we think we want. So we have to say, if I want a loving, peaceful, respectful, calm, productive day, I have to start offering those energies to everyone and everything, regardless of what they're returning. And then I have to decide, I will make no decisions on my own today. I'm going to turn this over to the guidance of the inner wisdom or the Holy Spirit or whatever you want. And then I'm going to need to recognize that every time I have frustration or resentment or bitterness or tension or judgment come up, that's my indication that I've chosen without asking for guidance. And it's an opportunity for me to choose anew. And that lesson talks about how it understands, the wisdom that wrote that lesson understands we really don't like to admit that we're wrong. So the lesson very gently says, you don't have to admit you're wrong, but let's just step into observing how it feels when you're charged up with all of this anger and judgment. And maybe you can admit that you don't like how that feels. And so you start with the admission, I really don't like how this feels. And then you step into so I hope there's another way to look at this. And choose again. To give up what I think I want, my trifling treasures put away, and leave a clean and open space for this Christ mind to come, for this wisdom to come, for this Holy Spirit guidance to come to the surface. And as I do that, and I keep choosing anew moment to moment, my day unfolds very differently than it does when I insist that I'm right and the way the world is unfolding is wrong.
Right.
So for anybody go ahead.
I've been very inspired by Byron Katie talking about, the open mind. And so that together with the recent, course lessons have just really helped me step into that and just not have, not set just all I need to do is choose what's rightfully mine, which is my happiness and my peace, and everything will flow from there. Like, I don't need anything to go a certain way. And
the unfolding of life is far more amazing, enjoyable, relaxing than anything we could create with our little conscious logical minds.
Mhm.
But it really is. It's like looking at a sunset and saying, "Oh, I wish there was more. Name your color of choice: orange, yellow, purple, pink, blue in this one." And that's just plain silly. It's just silly, and yet we don't understand how, when we have upset and tension, and we think our tension and anger and upset indicates that we're right and the world, the way it's unfolding, is wrong, we don't see the silliness there.
Right.
And we have wonderful teachers that come along and say, "Hey, remember, this thing that you're experiencing is the literal outcome of 13.84 billion years of creation unfolding. So, you might want to tuck that little arrogance aside and just find a way to add positive energy to this moment and see how much better your experience of it is." So we've done it. We've gone through the whole hour. Thank you for chiming in here in the last few minutes, and I appreciate the call as always. I'll mute you so we can do our transition. Thank you, Ellen.
Thank you, Dr. Tim.
And I'll remind us all that we come from love. We're made of this stuff we call love. We actually are love, and everything else is false. Welcome, Jeannie Rice. We'll turn
I was late coming in, so I didn't catch much.
There.
Oh.
I just turned you on. On the microphone. I turned on the microphone.
Got it. Thank you. I appreciate it. I was late coming in, so I didn't get much notes on your show for today.
Oh, we did mostly a solo show with Ellen tapping in here at the end. So have a great show.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.